My wife is an organic water kind of person. Like free range, organic, fair trade, small batch, single owner, whatever the buzzwords are, whatever we buy has to cover all of those things. She likes to hike, she likes to fish. She comes from what we call the thumb, because we're a mitten. So she comes from the thumb area in Michigan. And I will admit it was a bit of a jerk move when I moved her from that forest to Detroit. Now, so there are, when you're married, you get into a lot of conversations. So her first conversation with me was that she's like, I really don't know if I can live here because there's no grocery stores. And I said, there are plenty of grocery stores, they just sell socks. And then she said, well, I need a grocery store that sells groceries and not socks. And I said, well, then, this might have been a mistake. So then she said, well, what I really want is fresh eggs. And I said, oh, that's no problem. They have eggs where they keep the socks. And she said, but those aren't fresh eggs. And so we got into this long conversation really about socks because we're married and we ventured off. But you know how when you've been married a long time, they loop back? The men in here know what I'm talking about. Your wife will just loop back on you. Like this was 3 weeks ago and all of a sudden we're back at this again. So she looped back on me and said, I think I have a solution for the fresh egg problem. I said, well, I'd love to hear that. And she said, I think we should raise chickens. And I said, okay, okay. Now I need you to help me with this chicken thing because if you want me to hunt somebody down, if you want me to pull somebody to the side and have a personal and private conversation with them, if you want me to burn down a house and collect the insurance money, I'm a Detroiter. These are skills I have. Okay? I don't know how this chicken thing works. And she says, well, you get a bunch of chickens and you feed them and then you eat the eggs. I'm like, okay, I did go to a private school. I got that part. But how do we get the chickens? I mean, do we go to the grocery store and buy eggs and wait? Like, what do we do? And she said, no, you can go to a farmer and pick them up as chicks and then bring them home. And for whatever reason, I said, okay. Now, I think the real reason was secretly I wanted to raise my own chickens and stick it to the man. That was my secret theory. So we go to this farmer to get these chickens. Now, my wife she did a lot of research, which means she went on Wikipedia. And she used the Google. So the Google and Wikipedia told her there's all kinds of chickens, and I didn't know this. There's chickens that are good for laying eggs. There's chickens that make delicious soup. There's chickens that are so pretty you don't touch them. I didn't even know that. So she says to me, what we're going to get is Buff Orpingtons. And I love that name because it sounds like a frat guy, right? Hi, I'm Buff Orpington. And I love it. I love that. You want to see my mom's Mercedes? No. So we find a farmer in Belleville, Michigan, which is most people who have never been to Michigan don't understand. It's Detroit and it's a city, but you're probably 15 to 20 minutes away from farmland at any given minute. So we get outside the city and we get these birds. Now, we're at the farmers, and our idea is to get 5 chickens. Pretty sure we don't know what we're doing. We're expecting 3 to just die, just because we don't know what we're doing. So we figure we're going to kill 3 in general, and that'll leave us with 2, and 2's enough. So we get there, and we're picking out these chicks, and they're these cute little blonde chicks, and they're making these peeping sounds, and they're so cute. But I have this moment because I was raised in Detroit in the 70s and the 80s when it mattered, and I am... power to the people, my people, black is beautiful. So I'm looking at these, I'm like, I'm not raising all these white birds in my backyard in Detroit. That seems insane. So I look in these chicks and they have black chicks. I didn't know there were black chickens. I didn't know. So I see this little black chick and I'm like, yeah. We can get them little blonde chicks if you want to, but we're gonna get one black chick, yeah, right? So the farmer gives us 5 Buff Orpingtons and a Plymouth Barred Rock. Now it's time to outfit their warm space. So for those of you who don't know, now I've got to buy heating lamps. I'm buying heating lamps, and my wife is building all this weird construction in the middle of the living room, and we're buying organic feed, and it's costing lots of money. And I'm unprepared to be a farmer because I showed up at the Tractor Supply Company in a Honda Element. The guy at the cash register looked at me, looked at my car, and said, "What are y'all doing?" And I said, "We are raising chickens, sir." So we get them home, and we get them all set up, and the only people who are really interested in the chickens are the cats. The cats are like, "Ooh, look, Meals on Wheels." And once we calm them down, we are now chicken parents. Now, it took a minute for them to stop looking like brooms that nobody had cleaned and to start actually being birds. So we finally moved them outside, and my wife builds them a chicken coop. Another way that you know that we're unprepared to be chicken farmers is that my wife built their coop out of butcher block from IKEA. Their entire coop was built from the scrap section at IKEA. Their house was better than the house we were living in. So they're outside, and here's, there's a couple of things that I don't know if you know, so I'm going to share them. Number one, chickens lay 1 egg a day, 6 days, and then they cycle. They take a day off. Now, that's fine unless you have 6 chickens. And I don't know about you, but you can't give the eggs to the neighbors because the neighbors go from, "Oh, thank you for the eggs," to, "Yo, where's my eggs?" in like a week. And no one wants to deal with that. So we are now eating eggs with everything. I'm eating hard-boiled eggs like Oreos. People are coming to the house and it's like, "Would you like a cup of tea and possibly an egg? Would you like a piece of pizza? Here's your pizza and an egg." Like we are eating more eggs than we can shake a stick at. Now, that egg thing, it was easily a problem. But then the birds became a little too much to handle. And the day we knew they were too much to handle turned out to be a Sunday. Now, I wake up to this sound. And I say to my wife, "What the hell was that?" Here's something else they don't teach you on the Wikipedia. Chickens are natural lesbians. If there's no rooster around, one of them will butch up on you. So I look out into the backyard, and on top of the IKEA chicken coop, who's up there crowing at the sun? That sister I bought. The Buff Orpingtons are pew, 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 just having their own chicken time, and that girl is up there just trying to bring the party. And that's when I looked at my wife and said, "We got to get rid of them. We can't keep them." Now, my wife was concerned that we were going to somehow get arrested or get a ticket. And I informed her that we were in Detroit, and the Detroit Police Department had a bigger fish to fry. That, we didn't make the list of the things the Detroit Police Department had on their plate. But she was still concerned, and Natasha wasn't getting quieter. So I found a woman north of the city who had her own flock of chickens, and we moved them. Here's another thing you need to know. It's easier to move chickens when they're asleep. We didn't do that. I just found it was easier. 6 fully awake chickens in a dog kennel and the back of an Element going down the road. That was easily a mistake. But we get to this woman's farm and we release our chickens into her flock. So a couple of things that we noticed. Number one, our chickens were huge because my wife let them eat whatever they wanted. Also, our chickens were a little weird because my wife had decided that since they didn't have a mother, she would teach them how to scratch the ground and dig up worms. And the way they scratched the ground looked a lot like the way my wife scratched the ground, but nothing at all the way a chicken scratches the ground. So we dropped them off, and about 2 days later, the woman who has the flock calls us and says, "What is the deal with these birds?" And we said, "Well, whatever do you mean?" And she said, when I go for coffee in the morning, they come up on the porch and sit with me. I said, well, they used to do that with my wife while she was teaching them how to scratch for worms. And the lady just hung up on me. But every day that I look in that backyard and see the coop, I still miss those stupid birds. But I think what I miss most of all is I really messed up my one chance to stick it to the man. Thank you.